All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. So good to be with you on another Saturday night. I'm getting a peace sign up in the back. Thank you, Francis. Everyone's giving peace signs now. All right, peace, everybody. Hey, if you're new with us this evening, welcome to Free. If you're new with us online, welcome to Free. Stick around. We're glad you're here. This is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. So to all of you in person here in the room, welcome. To all of you online in your free circles, in your sober living houses, in your, kitchens, living rooms, wherever you all are gathered all over the country. I know we have people here from different states. Welcome. Glad you're part of this community, and you truly are part of this community, and we're so grateful for you to be here. Couple things is that a piano I hear in the background? Yo, hold on. This is crazy. No, it's beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful. Sorry, I walked out of the camera. He's getting better. So, listen, a couple of things you might want to know about. A couple of opportunities coming up. Actually, these opportunities have well started, but you're still welcome. It's our last week, this Tuesday and Wednesday. Wednesday night is our book study on the Four Agreements, but you can drop in this week, even though it's our last week. Noelle will be leading this one. She and I are co-leading this study together. It's been all kinds of fun. It has been a really good discussion every Wednesday night. So you're welcome to drop in on that this week right here at Free, 6:30 to 8. And on Tuesday nights, Derek will be wrapping up his discussion with a group of guys on the New Testament book of James, and they're calling it James Faith in Action. How do you put this faith stuff into action? Make it about taking steps forward. So y'all can drop into that too. That one's for men. The Four Agreements is for everybody. All right, y'all, this is a cool thing coming up. We're calling it Fun Night with Free. Here's the deal. If you want to partake in this, you need to let us know by this week. By Thursday's the cutoff day. It's $20 per person, but listen to everything you get. $20, main event. We have the place from 5 to 9. You get bowling and shoes included, gravity ropes, laser tag, billiards, shuffleboards. You get 2 pieces of pizza. I haven't had their pizza before. 2 slices of pizza and a non-alcoholic beverage. And $10 card for the arcade fun. If you haven't been to the main event, it's a really cool place. Kids are invited, but you've got to let us know. So shoot us. You can talk to Jen. Jen, can you wave your hand around? Talk to Jen. She's gathering names for us too. You can pay either check, Venmo, or cash. If you can, let us know tonight if you want to come. But if not, at least let us know by Thursday. Sound good? All right, y'all. It's going to be fun too. The Canadays are going. Canadays are going to be there. Who else? No, I know Noelle's going to be there. I know. Where's Kira? All right, look, we're going to have everyone. If you're not coming, you're missing out. That's what I'm going to say. And I think we still. Boom, y'all. The tech team still needs help. A few of you have signed up and we're grateful for it, but camera operators, sound techs, computer operators, live streaming producer, talk to Danny or Drew, email techteam@freespiritualcommunity.com. You techies out there that like to run AV equipment stuff, we need your help. So talk to them in the back. They need y'all. It takes a village. Isn't that what we say? It takes a village. So sign up and help if you're into it. All right, y'all. The way we start Free. By the way, happy 4th of July. I'm glad you're here tonight. Celebrate tomorrow, tonight, later. The way we start here at Free is with celebrating with one another, celebrations, and we lift up the good stuff. We don't ignore the hard stuff, the what we call heartaches, but we do save it for the end, because what we know about a recovery community is sometimes you could get bogged down in all the hard stuff, and we have to remember the gratitude and where God is in all of this. So we start with lifting up the new, the good. Maybe it's sobriety anniversaries or new jobs, the new thing in life, babies being born, new relationships, whatever it is. We want to lift up the new stuff together. So I invite you, I encourage you, if you're online, drop a comment in the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments. We want to celebrate with you. We believe that God celebrates with us. If you're here in the house, we'll do our own celebrating together. So we will come back to you online people, the online community. It's your opportunity to get vulnerable. Let people into your celebrations. It's how we do this stuff called life. So take 3 minutes and then we'll be right back.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run toward the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 Oh, wake up heart and wake up mind, and see the world is yours to find. And with every passing day there's more, calling you out to explore. Get up and go. There is joy found in the race, and I feel it in the place where I'm free. And I simply can't deny it, that I feel adventure calling out to me. Yeah, we are all looking for adventure. 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 We are all looking for And I'm living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free, living free.
Oh, we're back. We're back. We had two little girls ask if they could join us up here today. My daughter Shiloh and her friend Aspen, important parts of this community. Y'all want to say hi?
Hi. Hi.
Beautiful. And y'all know Tammy, of course.
Hey, everybody.
Do you want to start us?
I sure will.
All right.
I got to scoot in.
Let's put y'all in the front. Let's put y'all in the front, shall we? There you go.
There we go, little
All
cuties.
right. Okay.
Jeff says, so proud of and happy for our son BJ, phase 2 at Step Denver and 45 days sober.
All right, Jeff.
Very cool,
Celebrating
Jeff.
that.
I had a meeting with Step Denver this week, so that's pretty cool to see that Step Denver come
you
up.
You were at Step Denver?
No, they came in and we met.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I remember.
Very cool.
I'm picturing it now.
Yes.
Debbie is celebrating 7 days with no drugs or alcohol. Congratulations, Debbie. So
Debbie
glad
go?
you're with
Good
us
job, Debbie.
tonight. Good stuff.
Hey, Mike, he says, celebrating my youngest granddaughter's 1-year-old birthday with family, and they want me there now. How things have changed.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Yeah. Congratulations, Mike. That's the good stuff in life right there. All right, Michelle says, celebrating my 3 amazing children and their parents, Ryan, Kyle, Danny, and Kiara, Frank, and Summer. Also, I am celebrating my amazing husband, Corey.
That's a
Hey, we're
lot
going to celebrate all of them
celebrate.
with you. Thank
I
you for
like it.
sharing that with us, Michelle.
Terry praising God for new friends to share free with.
All right,
I
Terry.
love that, Terry.
Let's expand the mission, man. Break the silence of addiction. Jill says 1 year sober. Congratulations, Jill.
Awesome,
And before we
Jill.
go on, we'll do one more. But before we go on, you all need to know online how many celebrations we had up here in the house tonight of 9 months,
Yep.
1 year, 6 months, 11 years. I mean, just all over the house. So good stuff is happening, and we have to remember that when things get hard. The celebrating is important. All right, let's do one more, shall we?
All right, and 28 months, y'all.
We'll celebrate
Jenna.
that. Way to go, Jana.
Woohoo! I love it.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. Do you want to say anything?
You have
You
anything?
want to say anything in closing? No. No. Do you want to say anything in closing?
No.
I'm just always grateful that Tammy joins me up here every single week. And I wish y'all could be here throughout the week to see what Tammy does in this community day in and day out, and what she does on social media and being here at Free, what she does with coffee. So grateful for you, Tam. I'm glad you're part of this with me from day one. Okay, y'all, we are in the third week of this series called The Four Agreements. So we're doing an entire series on the Four Agreements. We made this series 5 weeks to do a wrap-up week, but this is week 3, and it's Don't Make Assumptions.
To be alive is the biggest fear humans have. The risk to be alive and express what we really are. You need a very strong will in order to adopt the 4 agreements. But if you can begin to live your life with these agreements, the transformation in your life will be amazing. You will see the drama of hell disappear right before your very eyes. Instead of living in a dream of hell, you will be creating a new dream, your personal dream of heaven. Death is not the biggest fear we have. Our biggest fear is taking the risk to be alive.
The 4 agreements, this is agreement number trace. Don't make assumptions. So let's talk about the problem with assumptions for just a moment, shall we? It was a few years ago, several years ago actually. I was officiating a wedding. Now this is pre-Canada Kids days. This was early in our marriage, and I was officiating this wedding, and Tammy, my wife, was my accompanied guest at this wedding, and I was standing around talking with some of the groom's family. She was off in the restroom. As we're talking, she comes out and she joins the conversation. A few moments go by, and she looks at the lady standing next to me and says, "Oh, you must be the groom's mother." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, no, she didn't. Oh, no, she didn't. It ain't the mom. Honey, it ain't the mom." Sure enough, the lady, talk about an awkward moment. The lady looks at her and says, "Why would you say that?" And she said, "I'm not his mom. I'm his sister." Yeah, talk about awkward. A couple of years go by. By the way, I got permission to share these stories from my wife. Enough time has gone by. We can now laugh at these moments. A couple of years go by, and we are at a Christmas party at one of our friends' house. And this Christmas party was pretty large, and so there was lots of people there that we didn't know. And we're sitting around this table talking to people we'd never met before, and a very similar thing happens. She says, "Oh, you must be his father." Much laughter happens, and he says, "No, actually, I'm not his dad. I'm his younger brother." So when we got in the car that night and departed from the driveway, we made a pact with one another that we would no longer make assumptions about family roles, especially when it has to do with ages. The truth is, we've all made assumptions, right? We've made assumptions, and these assumptions, they can at times make us really uncomfortable, whether you've made the assumption or you're on the other end of the assumption. Like when I was at the grocery store a few years back, it was when Selah, our first daughter, was born. and she was just a few months old. And Selah and I were running some errands, and we went to the grocery store to do some grocery shopping, and I put her in the cart, you know, that front section and the legs dangle down, and we're going through the produce section, and I stopped to bag up some of the produce, and there was a gentleman standing next to me. He looks at her, then he looks at me, he looks at her, then he looks at me, and he says, "He's just such a handsome little nugget, isn't he?" And he went on and on. Look at his little toes and look at his little fingers. And oh, he is just so handsome. And then he looks at me and says, "What's his name?" And do y'all know that moment? Like the point of no return. Things had already gone too far. And so I didn't want to stop them and correct them, because that would even be more awkward. So I had, on the way to the store, talked to one of my best friends. His name is Jeff. We were talking on the phone. So I said the first thing that popped into my mind, I said, "His name is Jeff." And he continues on in little Jeffy's face. And he's like, "Oh, little Jeffy, look how cute little Jeffy is. And look at little Jeffy's smile." And he went on and on and on, and things got more and more awkward. But the truth is, some assumptions, they're just not very big deals, are they? I mean, the truth is, with many of them, we can go on and we can ultimately laugh them off. But I think the real question becomes, what do you do when your assumptions actually hurt people? You know, Tammy and I, we met in college. And she was at the time living in a dorm room. So I like to spend time in that dorm room, getting to know this girl and this new relationship. And she also had some roommates. One of her roommates was Native American. And one evening we were all hanging out in the living room. And y'all, I said the dumbest thing. I mean, the dumbest thing I could say, that's what I said. And it was Ryan, with his assumptions and his opinions, thinking that Ryan was being funny. And I should also tell you all, I grew up in mid-Missouri, grew up with all white people. I didn't have much exposure to other races and other cultures. And we're sitting around a living room, and she let the group know that she grew up on a reservation. And I said, "So tell us, what was it like to grow up in a teepee?" And y'all, you know, enough time has passed. I can laugh at this now. But I didn't realize how much it hurt her until several months went by, and she came to me and she let me know how embarrassing that was, how inappropriate it was. And she was gracious enough with me to give me resources about how she grew up, about her culture, about our history together. You know, the truth is, in my formative years, religion and culture allowed me to make assumptions about people based on skin color, based on race, based on social and economic status, based on sexual orientation. You know, I was a leader in a youth group in my teenage years. I also remember an incident in my teenage years, probably about the age of 16. I was walking through a Hardee's fast food restaurant. Do y'all remember Hardee's? Are they still around? Okay, they were in mid-Missouri when I was 16. That's all I know. I'm walking through this Hardee's restaurant, and I see two gentlemen sitting at the table, and they're getting friendly with one another, and they're holding hands together. And Ryan's religion told him that he has an opinion on this, and Ryan's religion gave me the right to voice this opinion. So I walked up to their table, and I shook my head, and I said a very derogatory term that's used towards the gay community, and I did it thinking God was on my side, thinking this was my Christian duty. And what I now know is God had nothing to do with this moment, because God never has anything to do with that kind of hatred and bigotry. And it was the thinking of, I don't know them, I don't want to know them, but yet I had lots of opinions about them. And I'm going to voice these opinions. And what I can also tell you is I'm living proof that hearts and minds can change if we let God in. Hearts and minds begin to change when we set aside our assumptions and we begin to ask questions. Things begin to change when we have a willingness to actually get to know the other rather than judge the other. Things change, is it true? When we seek to understand rather than to be understood. Who taught us that? St. Francis prayer, right? And some of y'all might be thinking, well, talking about assumptions, why does this issue come up? Why are we talking about this? Do y'all know that Thursday afternoon, a gentleman walked in, and he said he'd heard a lot about Free, but he had never been to Free, and he was asking all kinds of questions. And about midway through our conversation, I exposed that I was the pastor here. I let him know, and he said, "You're the pastor here?" I said, "I'm the pastor here." And he says to me, he says, "Well, my daughter battles addiction, and she's now in recovery." But then he paused, and he said, "I need to ask you a question." He said, "Are you LGBTQ affirming?" And I said, well, not only are we affirming, and I was so proud to say of this community, we're welcoming, and if your daughter comes here, she will be welcomed and affirmed in who she is and who God created her to be. Do y'all know it's one of the primary reasons we started a whole category called spiritual refugees? Because I cannot tell you, we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees, how many of our brothers and sisters have been kicked around by religion. They have been told by some church or religious institution or some religious leaders that when it comes to the God stuff, they're not welcome. They're not wanted here. And here we say, no, you're welcome here. We've created space for you. We want you here. You know, one of the author of the Proverbs, he said it really simply of our assumptions, and I think he kind of nails it. It was, and keep in mind, this is ancient wisdom, Old Testament Proverbs. Here's the line he drops. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing their opinion. Come on. Yeah, another way he could say this, stop being a fool with your assumptions. Stop thinking you have to voice your opinion on everything, because see, what I've learned is when we start making assumptions about people who have stories that are different from our own, what we do is we start drawing lines about God's love, and we start drawing lines about who's in and who's out when it comes to the God stuff. And what I've learned is when we start to do that, Jesus always comes and follows along. We have an image on the screen for you. I love this image. He follows along and he starts erasing those lines, and you can hear Jesus whisper under his breath, y'all do know God's love is for all people, right? Stop putting God's love in a box. It is for everyone. You know, there's a beautiful story in the New Testament Gospel of Mark. And it's a story about Jesus and this woman and Jesus' disciples. These disciples are like Jesus' students, his followers. They're learning from Jesus. They're probably the ones who are closest to him. And see, up until this point in Mark's gospel, they've been traveling around the region, spreading good news and healing and talking about God's love and this thing called the kingdom of God. And meanwhile, the religious and political leaders of the day, they have gathered together to begin to plot against Jesus and how to kill Jesus. And then you get this story in Mark's gospel. And keep in mind, right after this story, they were actually quite successful, and they put Jesus to death on a cross. But here's how this story goes. I love this story. We've read this story here before, by the way. But you could do like 17 messages on this story alone. Mark chapter 14, Jesus was at Bethany visiting the house of Simon, who had a skin disease. During dinner, and let's pause there for just a moment. This is the storyteller giving us a huge heads up. This is the storyteller saying, keep in mind, when it comes to Jesus, he always goes against the societal norms. He never plays by the rules when it comes to this stuff. This man had a skin disease, we're told. He would have been referred to as a leper. In the first century Greco-Roman world, the world of Jesus, you would never be caught dead hanging out with someone with a skin disease because it was believed that they did something to deserve this and God was punishing them. It was believed that maybe their parents or someone in their family did. You would stay away from this person. You would certainly never touch them because that disease could spread to you. And by no means would you ever share a meal with them because, well, that was an intimate act. And here Jesus is with his disciples, sitting at a table, eating dinner with a man who had a skin disease. A woman came in with a vase made of alabaster and containing very expensive perfume of pure nard. She broke open the vase and poured the perfume on his head. Some, keep in mind, it was his disciples who were with him, some of them grew angry. They said to each other, "Why waste the perfume? This perfume could have been sold for almost a year's pay and the money given to the poor," and they scolded her. Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Why do you make trouble for her? She has done a good thing for me. You always have the poor with you, and whenever you want, you can do something good for them, but you won't always have me. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body ahead of time for burial," an ancient Jewish first century custom. I tell you the truth that wherever in the whole world the good news is announced, what she's done will also be told in memory of her. A couple of observations about this story. Jesus' disciples, the ones who were closest to him, his closest friends, the ones who had been following him, they are the ones who completely miss it. They miss what's happening right in their midst. And look at all the assumptions they have. What was their first response? Their first response was anger. Who is this woman and what is she doing here? Which, by the way, again, in the first century Greco-Roman world, women were second-class citizens. Who is this woman and who does she think she is? Notice what they didn't start with. They didn't start with any questions. They didn't start with any attempts of getting to know her. They just had a bunch of assumptions and opinions about what to do with money. They were totally absorbed with their agenda. Second observation. It's interesting in this story and in so many other stories how often Jesus is seeing what's happening just beneath the surface. He didn't buy into the labels. He didn't buy into the societal norms. He always put relationship before assumptions. I mean, Jesus essentially says to some of his closest friends, he says, y'all are totally missing it. You are totally missing this beautiful moment. You are totally missing what God is up to because you believe your assumptions to be true. The third agreement from the book on the fourth agreements is don't make assumptions. And here's how he puts it in the opening pages of the chapter. He says, we have the tendency to make assumptions about everything. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are the truth. You know, in my experience, when we get busy making assumptions, we always undermine God's work in the world. And y'all listen, be careful with your assumptions because they may prevent you from seeing the miracle that is happening all around you, within you, in your midst. And another thing I've learned is that nothing will challenge our assumptions about other people and about God's work in the world more than the work of recovery. Is it true? Because how many of us have made assumptions about someone battling their addiction and we say to ourselves, they are never going to make it. They are too far gone. They are a lost cause. They are never going to get this stuff of recovery. They are never going to surrender to this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you're sitting next to someone in a room, and it's that person you had the assumption about, and all of a sudden, they stand up and pick up their year chip of sobriety. And all of a sudden, their life is changing before our eyes because all of a sudden, God is doing something in them that they could never, ever do for themselves. Noelle, our co-leader of this book study, she told a story last week about some of the assumptions she made about a young lady that she is sponsoring through these 12 steps. And she said that she had heard stories about this young lady, and she was certain that she was going to give her a run for her money. She was certain this wasn't going to go well. She had questions about whether or not this young lady was serious about getting sober and serious about recovery. And then all of a sudden, now she's clean and sober, and according to Noelle, completely knocking it out of the park with her step work, showing up, doing the work, getting vulnerable, doing the writing. And all of a sudden, her life begins to change. Y'all, don't miss the relationships that God is putting right in front of you. And nothing will challenge our assumptions more than the work of recovery. One final thing that stood out in the story. Jesus was showing us the new thing, the beauty that happens in the midst of the death and the brokenness. Keep in mind, this story is surrounded by death and brokenness, surrounded by despair. And how many of us, when it came to our own stories, our own recovery, our own addiction, you had all of these assumptions about yourself. And the problem is you believed that they were true. And you believed that you could never get sober. How many of you have said to yourself, man, the sobriety just doesn't work for me. I can't get sober. I can't do this. You look around and relationships in your life are starting to crumble. And you're saying, why can't I do this? Sobriety doesn't work for me. In my relapse, when I was 6 months into my relapse, and by the way, relapse does not have to be a part of your story. It was part of my story. 6 months into my relapse, that's exactly what I was saying. In my moment of despair, it doesn't work. Sobriety doesn't work for me. This is just the way it is, and nothing's ever going to change. And then somewhere along the way, because you've been given the gift of desperation, things started to suck just enough. You encountered the God who was doing for you what you could not do for yourself. You see, my brothers and sisters, your story may seem filled with all kinds of despair and death and brokenness, and yet this story says, pay attention. Pay attention, because there's beauty to be found in the brokenness. Pay attention, because God always does God's best work right in the midst of death and brokenness. So, I ask you, take 60 seconds. What are some of the assumptions you need to let go? What are some of the assumptions in your life that you need to release? Assumptions about others? I don't know them and I don't want to know them. Assumptions about God's work in the world? Oh, this is just the way it is and nothing's ever going to change. I know who God is. Or assumptions about yourself. It doesn't work for me. This is just the way it is. What are some assumptions you need to let go? Take 60 seconds and we'll come back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Man, we could be wrestling with these questions all week, right? These are not 60-second questions, like I say every week. These are questions for us to engage. It's a, we value what? Progress, not perfection, right? These are questions we could engage throughout our journey. If you're new with us, I want to let you know that every Saturday night we have a guest storyteller in the house to come and share some of their experience on the topic of the day, which is don't make assumptions. And tonight I want to introduce you to Amy Morley. She's in the house, and I should also tell you just a few words about Amy before she comes up. Amy and Matt are new in this community. They've been coming. In fact, your first week here was when I was on vacation. We were away, so we didn't get to meet you on your first week. But they have gotten serious about this stuff. Matt even ordered a free decal to put on his truck. Yeah. I'm told he never put stickers on his truck, but he put a free decal on, and we said, "Oh my goodness, where'd you guys get those? We got to get some of those." So they're being made right now. We're gonna have decals for the community coming up, so that you can put them on your vehicles. And I also want to say, Matt's newly out of rehab, 65 days. Is that right? 65 days out. So yeah, man. And I'm not breaking anonymity here. You shared that with the community last week. So, dude, I'm just so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're finding new life. So glad you've stumbled upon this thing called sobriety. And so glad you guys are a part of this community. And listen, y'all, it's always important to hear from our, we have those three categories: addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And this one, Amy, is coming in as the loved one of an addict. And we need to hear from them. We need to hear from all groups. And so Amy is invited here as the loved one of an addict. And we're going to get things started. Come on up, Amy. Help me welcome Amy to the table. A little sound check with Amy. Can you check it?
Can you hear me?
Is she on?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but they can't.
I know.
There's probably a message in that. Oh, is our mic not on? Oh, we got to turn your mic on.
Hello.
All right, now you are on. Can y'all hear her real good in the back and online? All right.
Okay.
Amy, so you're here in, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about, you had assumptions,
Yes.
and I know you're rooting this in your story, and but tell us about some of the assumptions you had about your marriage, how long you've been married to Matt, assumptions you had about addiction, recovery, your marriage being over. Tell us about some of that. Let people in a little bit on that so they understand the goodness that's happening.
Okay. So Matt and I have been married for 9 years. Just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated our 9-year anniversary, so I was very excited
Congratulations.
about that. Yes. Matt and I, we have had a great marriage. Definitely over the last 4 years or so, alcohol started playing a really big role in our marriage. And it just kind of progressively got worse and worse. And I would say the last year and a half was, I would say, pretty bad. So Matt decided after a stream of events that he was going to go to rehab. And so he did go to rehab.
Yep.
And I felt like there was going to be, I assumed that when he came out of rehab, there was going to be this light shining on Matt. And he's going to come out and everything's going to be perfect and great.
Yeah.
And all of the things are going to be just perfect. And it's just going to be like a little magic fairy wand that comes out of rehab. Well,
I'm assuming, is this a common experience for the loved ones? Like, you just have this assumption that light's going to be there?
well, I feel like we need to say also, like, hey, y'all are in rehab for 30 days and you get to go to like all this therapy and you have the meals made for you and it's all great. And we're at home like running around and running the business and doing all these crazy things. And it's a lot for us to be at home. So I thought he's going to come home and he's going to get back into it and life is going to be great. Well, that didn't happen, and I
Yeah.
assumed it would. So my heart was broken a little bit. And what happened is he started drinking a couple of days after he got home from rehab, and I actually had to leave to go to out of state with my daughter for a really major big deal swim meet. And she said, "Mom, I don't want you to go if you're going to have a problem with Statty." And I said, "I will not have a problem with Statty. I'm going." So I hid in the bathroom. I hid in the hallway. I cried. My heart was broken because Matt was drinking the entire time I was gone. And I assumed our marriage was over. Not only did I assume it, I knew it. Our marriage is over. He doesn't love me. He doesn't love the girls. He loves alcohol more than he loves us, our family. I thought, I assumed the worst. I called a lawyer. I was going to go home and be prepared for our marriage to be over. I spoke to my pastor at the time on the phone multiple times, sitting in the parking lot, pretending like everything was fine when Lindsay was swimming, and then when she was off with her team, I'm in the parking lot, like shattered. And I said, can I do this? Can I forgive him? Can I still do this? And he goes, "I'm not here to tell you what you can and cannot do. You are going to have to decide for yourself what you're willing to do." And I feel like a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I don't know, but maybe I'm not ready to give up the fight for our marriage yet. I just don't know. But I assumed the worst, got back on the plane and went home.
Yeah, and
Assuming
I
the
think, I think it's so important to realize that sometimes as alcoholics and addicts, we love to play the card when we're active in addiction to say, well, we're not affecting anyone else. It's just affecting me. I mean, you know this
Especially
to be
because we were
right?
gone, right? And so
Yeah.
he gets to sit around and whatever
Which
the whole
is,
time.
which I also think is important to note that the disease of alcoholism, the disease of addiction, makes us feel so lonely. It creates isolation, and it also creates loneliness and isolation
me.
for the loved ones.
Yes.
And to even have to ask that question, my wife Tammy would tell you she asked very similar questions. Why does he love alcohol more than
Yes,
us?
I said that a lot to him, to his face when
Yeah.
we'd be in a fight. Probably I said it to him when he was drunk, so it wasn't really a smart time for me to be saying that. But but I used to say, "You love alcohol more than you love me. How is that possible?" And I used to say those things,
Yeah.
and I assumed that those things were true. I also assumed that when he would get mad at me, when I was dumb enough to pick a fight with him when he wasn't sober, and he would say maybe mean things to me or maybe call me a bad name, that I assumed that he actually meant it, because I was like, well, it must be buried deep down in there if he's actually going to say it.
Yeah.
And I would say that to him the next day when he was sober, and I'd say, you called me a blah, 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 and you must mean it. And he goes, "No, I don't mean it. I don't mean it." And I really had to think a lot about that stuff. I had thought a lot about that stuff when I was in Utah, because I was isolated from him. I was worried about him. I was worried about our marriage, our family, the whole thing. So I got back on the plane and I went home and didn't say anything the first night. The next night I woke up in the morning and I just started talking to him. And I started talking to him, not caring what I was actually saying. I was just not going to hold back, and I was going to be really communicative with him about how I was feeling. And it turns out that Matt had some unfinished business to do at rehab.
Yeah.
And he realized that in that conversation, and he went back. So I went back for another 30 days. And it's been a whole different ballgame now for us. But I assumed everything was over, but I also told him I wasn't ready to stop fighting for our marriage. And he wasn't either, obviously, because he went back to rehab and he did what he needed to do. I found Free while I was in rehab, because I started watching Free while he was in rehab, and I was like, "So, I'm on Freeze," and he's like, "What are you doing?" and I was
And now look at him. He's got
and now
decals
he's
and
here. He's
everything.
got decals.
He'll probably get a tattoo someday.
He
of it.
probably will.
So hold on. There's some such
Yeah.
important stuff here. One, we say it in our community every single week, and I forgot to say it tonight. Dang. I start with this. What's the one thing we don't do here?
Shame.
We do not do shame. And we often, when I say it, let me just give a moment of honesty with y'all here. I'm coming from the position of the addict, of the alcoholic. We don't do shame because my story was so filled with shame, and I know fellow alcoholics, there's so much shame in their story. It's what keeps them deeper into addiction and from getting honest with themselves. And but man, you bring up these points of the shame that the loved ones battle through. And so it's just important to say we don't do shame with the loved ones either. I mean, it's for all of us that this thing of shame can come in and say, well, why is it happening this way?
Right.
Why, all the why questions that just keep us spinning our wheels. So, but tell people, Amy, how it's interesting how you found free. How'd you find free?
Well, I was Googling because I'm
Thank you,
at
Google.
home. I'm a Googleologist. That's one of my jobs, but that's what I say anyways. I'm like, oh, I'll find it. I'm a Googleologist. But I just, when Matt went back to rehab the second time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start finding everything we can do because I'm going to support him. Like, I'm in it. We're going to beat this thing. I'm going to be his partner. I am going. And so, like, I'm finding all this stuff. And I it would depend on his mood when I was talking to him on the phone when he was in rehab. I'd be like, so, how's it going? Hey, so guess what I found? And he's like, oh, wow.
That wasn't annoying at all, was it?
No, he
Matt?
wasn't. Nor was it annoying when we're sitting in an AA meeting and I'm like, maybe that guy could be your sponsor. And I'm like giving him the elbow. He's like, and I'm like, why is everybody in AA eat candy? What's going on with that? And so I've learned a lot about this disease, and I've learned a lot about how I can support him the very best. And so definitely we go to rehab, or we go to AA meetings, and they're like, so have you heard of Al-Anon? And let me just be honest with you.
Drop
I
it.
have heard of Al-Anon, and I'm okay with. I'm not saying I won't go to Al-Anon, but right now, Matt likes to joke, and so he started the joke where I am not the one who started this joke, but he says, when I was in rehab, I was in minimum security prison. Now I'm home from rehab. I've been home for 5.5 weeks, and I have an ankle monitor on. That's me, the ankle monitor. So right now, I am holding his hand, and I go to meetings with him. We come to free. We have a completely different lifestyle change, and I'm proud of it because I love all the new people I've met. I'm like, we're going to go make some more friends and we're going to have people over and we're going to do barbecues. And Matt's like, yeah. But now he's starting to get into it and it's worked out really good. But honestly, like right now, my life and everything I'm doing is to support my husband. That's just the season I'm in right now because my husband is in the early stages of recovery. And maybe after 90 days of Matt being home, Amy can maybe go to Al-Anon, and maybe Amy can do some. I told you when I talked to him Thursday, I might start some yoga. I am not a yoga person, but I might start doing it because I feel like I need to just calm myself a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying this and being
Yes.
honest with us because sometimes I think what can happen in a recovery community is, I'll be honest, the same thing we can experience in religious communities. And there's one way to think about this, and let me tell you the only way to think about this, and I've got the right way. By the way, if you don't do it my way, you're going to die and suffer.
Right.
Okay, where have I heard that before? So many of us here in this room, I'll speak for myself, I found a way that works, something that really has significantly changed my life. But that doesn't mean there's only one way to recovery. There are other good tools out there, and the point is we're leaning into tools that aren't our own sources.
Correct.
So more power to you, sister. It's about healing and recovery, and we do this work together. But tell us, just in this short, I want to say short, and Matt, for you, it's like an eternity, right? 65 days. Yeah, long time. Someone get him a towel. He's sweating back there. Where do you see? Let me just ask it in a way I know. Where do you see God's hand at work? Where do you see things being made new?
Everything is new for Matt and I right now.
Yeah.
For 2 years, Matt and I did not sleep in the same bed because he was passed out drunk on the couch for most of those days,
Yep.
or he would come to bed and he would be snoring so loud because he was trashed, basically, and I'm like, I'm out. So I started sleeping in the other room, or he started sleeping in the other room, and now we go to bed every night together.
Does he snore still?
No. He
Good
does
job.
not. It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I love to hear you say that
crazy.
because Tammy said the same thing about I got sober and all of a sudden we're sleeping together again.
Well,
Like
and
a
you know
married
what?
couple.
Great things come from sleeping in the same bed. It's amazing.
We got 3 kids out of the deal when I got sober.
So, I mean, that's an amazing part. We exercise together in the mornings. We get up and we go and exercise together, and we're doing our own exercises, but we ride in the car there and back, and we share an office together now, both desks in the office, and we are spending a lot of time together, but I feel so happy, so renewed, so happy that I was listening to my pastor who said, this is your choice,
Absolutely.
because there are a lot of people that will ask you like, well, wait a minute, why are you still doing this? Like, you know, like, I know this has been really hard on your marriage. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not ready to give up the fight yet. And I'm sure there are people that do, and it's okay. Like, everybody's got their tolerances, and mine just wasn't met yet. And I love Matt, and I'm so happy that I'm part of his recovery. I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm excited for him, and I'm excited for the newness that he feels. You know, our plan is to renew our vows next summer,
Oh,
which is
how
going to be
beautiful is that?
amazing. I'm so excited about that. We were going to visit our new grandson in about 14 days, and the night before we go, we're spending the night on a beach in a hotel. And I said, yeah, well, I just want to walk on the beach with you and hold your hand and kiss you at sunset, because like I haven't felt that way for so long, and sobriety has brought that back into our marriage and our lives. So I'm
Yeah.
super happy
How
about that.
beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And let me just speak for the community. I'm speaking on behalf of the community right now. Yeah, you're welcome. If things get difficult, and what I know about marriage, even in sobriety, we hit difficult times. Is it true? And this isn't just marriage. This is the thing we call life and relationships. Relationships get difficult, and just know you have a whole community here who's walking with y'all. And that's a cool thing to have.
I think it's an amazing thing to have. You have to, you can't be afraid to say something. You can't be afraid to talk to people. I think for me, knowing that we have that here, if something happens, like you're going to be getting a text at 3 o'clock in the morning. It might happen, you know, and your wife's going to be like, why is Amy texting you at 3 o'clock? Well, because we're having an issue and I need to because I'm not one to wait on
Yeah.
things.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you figured that out yet, but hey, look at that. So he could be your next sponsor. He's like, stop. So, but you know, I think it's great. And I think anybody who's going through anything hard, whether it's, you know, addiction or anything, you've got to have your peeps. And I'm
That's
super
right.
glad
And that's
that we
what
have ours.
this community is so much about. That. That's why I love this community so much. Anything else you want to say, Amy?
No, I'm obviously a resource. Like if anybody in our community wants to talk to somebody who's
Absolutely.
a loved one of an addict, which is me, or a normie, what you guys like to say, normie.
A
People
normie.
that bring donuts. I don't know. But I would love to talk to you, because I feel like I want to be a resource for those people, because it's a hard deal. You know, Matt's on text and stuff, talking to his, you know, his cohort from his recovery, you know, from PLR, and he has a lot of that. And I don't feel like I have a lot, because none of my friends really are married to addicts, but it's nice to come here and feel like the embrace, you know?
And what we find here, Amy, I'm dead serious about this. The more it's why our mission is breaking the silence of addiction, because all of a sudden what happens is you open up about your story and you're going to get a text later tonight from a friend or a Facebook message or an email that says, hey, thank you so much for sharing. My husband struggles and I've kept it in for 10 years or whatever, my son, my daughter, or me. I mean, it just happens so often in this community. It's one of the things I love about our mission, breaking the silence of addiction. You've been part of that tonight, and I think you're going to keep being a part of that in this community.
Yes.
So glad you're here. You too, Matt. So glad you're here, brother. Love y'all. And thank you for
Thank
being
you.
with us
Thank you
tonight.
for having me. I appreciate
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. So, guys, it's been a while. It really has been a while since I've told you about the wagon, hasn't it? You know, and Amy just reminded me about the importance of the wagon and what we do here and why we do what we do here. You know, I was at the rescue mission in LA, the largest rescue mission in the world, serving the homeless population. Can I stand up, Drew, or shall I sit? I'll sit. I can stand? I'll sit. So, largest rescue mission. And I was taking a tour with the executive director of the rescue mission of LA, called the Union Rescue Mission. And we went up to the top floor, and the top floor is their memorabilia section. And they had pictures of their history, and the central picture was a picture of a wagon. And I said, dude, what's the story with the wagon? He said, dude, you don't know what the wagon is? I said, no, but apparently I need to know. He said, that's how the Union Mission got started. It was back in the late 1800s. This wagon in LA would go into the roughest places in LA. They would distribute things like food, hope, clothing, Bibles, and at the end of the night, they would welcome on anyone who wanted to get onto the wagon to jump on, because they knew where they were headed. They offered a place of recovery and healing. But y'all, what happens when you get a bunch of drunks on a wagon? Some of them fall off, but this wagon, I'm told, would stop, and the sober ones would jump down and help the drunk ones back onto the wagon because they knew where they were headed. And when I heard this story, this light went off, and I said, man, if we ever start something new, this wagon has got to be the central image of the community because it is church at its best when we function as the wagon. So we went and bought a wagon. It's been with us from day one in our backyard, which was 3 years ago. Then Ryan decided he needed to get a tattoo. Is that the right one? Yeah, tattoo of the wagon on his neck. And I love the wagon. That's the story of the wagon. It's a reminder to us we do this work together. We journey together. We do not kick the wounded. We do not do shame. We do this journey together. And I can't stress to y'all, I said it earlier in the message, we are creating space, I hope, for spiritual refugees, not just addicts and loved ones of addicts, but those who have been kicked around by religion. And for many of them, free is a last chance. And they say that. This is like my last thing with the God stuff, and if this doesn't work, I'm out. And so we just want to welcome y'all, and I want to show you a video of our friend and member of this community, Tony G. He's been a guest storyteller here before, but here's a little 2-minute video of Tony G.
Hi, my name's Tony, and I'm an addict. You know, growing up, I was a part of a lot of different denominations, trying to find out maybe where I fit or I belong. And I struggled, you know, born into a Jewish household, lived with a Catholic man, went to Catholic school, lived with a Christian family, married a non-practicing Mormon, and I just didn't know where I belonged. And Free was one of those places where I felt like I just could be me, and they accepted me for who I was. And I literally found and felt grounded here in this church. And what would I say to somebody struggling with addiction? Man, wow. Yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know I needed help. I remember when my friend knocked on the door and saved my life when I was just about to take it. You know, church, that was like the furthest thing from my mind. But he instilled something in me that I believe Free does for everybody, which is hope. And he just gave me that hope and told me that my life had meaning and purpose. And then through that, I saw the powerful message that I was struggling with addiction. I didn't know what was next. And so if you're struggling right now with addiction, you're not alone. That's the first thing that I tell you. I'm an addict. And my life was completely turned upside down. And it's taken a lot of time and effort and energy. But I'm really proud when I look in the mirror and see the person I am today. But if you would have asked me what my life would be like 12 years ago, I couldn't even describe how amazing it is today. All because I took a moment of courage and walked into a church, into sobriety, and into the possibility of turning my life around. So I really would say if you're struggling with addiction, first and foremost, you're not alone. Number two, you don't have to feel shame. And three, that there's people like myself and along with Free that are here to help you. So don't feel like you have to do any more of this by yourself. Raise your hand, ask for help, and allow us to come and love on you. So hopefully you can look at yourself in the mirror and start loving that person again. I financially give to Free. I feel that the impact is the ripple effect that I'm looking for in my life, and that's to be the change. And I think Free has that opportunity, Free's message, and I love the pastor, I love Ryan, and I love his family, and I love the kindness that he exudes. And I really think, like deep down inside, I want to be a part of something that has a powerful message. Being an addict, having addicts in my life, and literally being a spiritual refugee, just trying to find where I belong, I felt like Free was a great place to plant myself, my belief systems, and really just want to see it ripple out into the community. So I love giving to Free, and I love seeing what Free does with that. And so I'm grateful to be a part of this community and watch it grow.
Tony G, if you're watching right now, man, love you, appreciate you. You too, Amber, you and Amber, the whole family. Glad you all are part of this community. And I use that as a segue. By the way, Tony has written a journal. It's called the Be Fulfilled Journal. He's written a couple journals, but they're in the back, and proceeds of that go to free. So thank you for that too, Tony. Pick you up if you're not a journaler, or if you are a journaler, pick up a journal. You guys know that for the last 7 weeks, we're in a 15-week financial campaign fundraiser. We are trying to meet our goal of $600,000. I know, catch your breath. It's a big number. Deal with it. It's a big number, right? And it should be big. You know that we're calling this the Welcome Home campaign, and the reason we're calling that is because we're moving 3 miles down the road. Guys, we actually did the walkthrough this week, the inspection. It's good news. Everything went well. The place isn't caving in, so we can move forward with the purchase. We'll find out more. More will be revealed this week, but everything is moving in the right direction to get this purchase and to have the runway to do what we need to do once we get in there, which is we need children's spaces. We're going to have a daily cafe to create space, to live into our mission, a cafe where it's daily creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection with coffee and grab-and-go items to be served. The big room where we gather doesn't just hold 100 people, but we figured this week we're knocking down some walls. It's going to hold up to 260 people. Downstairs, we'll be able to host multiple meetings at one time because look at the space here. We can only do one meeting at a time, and we cannot fully live into our mission. So this is about expanding the mission, and it's always, I said this last week too, and I really mean this, it is always about seeing lives transform. It's never just about a building. For people to say, well, the church isn't a building. It's, well, of course. I mean, who doesn't know that? Of course, church isn't a building. A church is about the people. A community is always about the people and lives being transformed together in a community. So we had a very generous giver tonight that let me know just before the service started that they wanted to give $1,000, and they're willing to match up to $1,000, I should say. So if you can give online and help us match us by tonight, that would be awesome. What I know is it takes a whole community of people. Did I say this last week? We got a grant from the Anschutz Foundation. I was told again tonight how big of a deal that is, and I'm like, I knew it was a big deal. I didn't know how big of a deal. It's a big deal. We have so many people supportive of this community and what's happening here. And y'all, we get to be a part of it. I mean, we get to be a part of this work. So I do want to let you know, if you can give, and it doesn't matter how big or small, we're trying to meet this goal, and we got till the end of August to do it. But help us match the $1,000 tonight. There's 3 ways to give. And please do, when you can download the app. The app will be fixed this week. So if you don't have it yet and you can't download it, it'll be fixed this week, we're told. Just go to the website at freespiritualcommunity.com. If you want to give to the Welcome Home campaign, please do put Welcome Home in the memo, and the same with the text. Text the number on your screen. It gives you a very simple set of instructions, and it's a safe, simple, secure way of giving. Your generous giving helps sustain and thrive the message of breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. Or for those of you here in person, there's also the Kleenex box on top of the wagon. You can put whatever in there, or you can scan the little thing too. It'll bring you to the giving site. Thank you all for being a part of that. We're going to be, of course, we talk about it. If you're new here, it's not just that we always talk about money. We're right in the midst of this financial campaign to get into our new home. So that's who we are. It's what we're about. And we are moving soon. People keep asking when we're moving. Our closing date is August 2nd. We could have an extension on that, but as of now, it's August 2nd. I wish I could have an exact day of when we move in. I don't have that because there's more to be revealed, but it'll be sometime August, September. I will keep you all in the loop with all the details I have. Feel free to ask me questions along the way, or anyone on our board. And how we end in this community each Saturday night is we do heartaches together the same way we do celebrations. So it is your opportunity to let others in. We have a prayer team here at Free that lifts you up throughout the week and tries to connect with you. And what I know about this community is we are the wagon together. We connect throughout the week, and I see y'all do it better than I've seen any community do it, really. So it's your opportunity to get vulnerable. I know it can feel a little creepy to start typing that online if you're online on our community, but you'll find a whole community of support because we cannot walk this journey alone. And some of you are carrying heavy burdens that you have no business. You weren't created to carry these things alone. So if you're online, let people in on your heartaches. What do you need prayer for? What do you need to be lifted up for? And listen, God always hears the cries of the people. So let's just take a couple of minutes and we'll come back and close things down together. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Prayers for you. Thank you all for your honesty and vulnerability here. Shall I scoot over some more? There we go. Tammy's back up with me. So do you remember any of those stories at the wedding and the
So
Christmas party?
embarrassing, right? Oh my gosh.
Honey, I love you though. You know it.
Oh, okay.
You know it. All right. You did give me permission to share it though, right?
No, the first one. You just kept going.
We don't. That's right, Simon. We don't do shame. There was 4 more I could have shared.
That's
but
probably true.
I'm just kidding. All right, let's do some heartaches. Lift some people up.
I always blush up here. Goodness.
You do?
Yes, you make me blush.
She's proclaimed.
Hey, Brian. He says, my aunt has been very ill with many afflictions. She spent most of the last 2 months in the hospital. We've been praying for her.
Yeah.
As of earlier this week, her heart started failing, and they haven't given her through the week to live. We're waiting for the dreaded phone call. Sorry, B. Yeah.
Yeah, lifting you up in prayer, you and the whole family. Michelle said, please pray for healing. I've been in a lot of pain while struggling with depression. Michelle, lifting you up in prayer. Glad you're here tonight.
I love seeing you coming back every week, and prayers for you, friend. Roy says my cousin Nancy and her husband Bruce had purchased a home in Kentucky a couple months ago. They lost it in a fire. Dang. Lost pretty much everything, but everyone got out safe. The prayers for them.
Roy, thanks for lifting them up, man. Prayers. And listen, we'll stop there. But if you guys have more prayers online, if you want to continue, drop them in. Even if you're here tonight in person, you can go back to this thread on Facebook or YouTube, and you can put them in. You can drop us an email. There's a place on the website where you can connect with us and ask for prayer. And we would love to connect with you that way. Grateful for y'all, lifting you up in prayer. And speaking of prayer, take a big deep breath. Sometimes you just got to breathe, my brothers and sisters. You got to remember in your breath, you are inviting the God of the universe in through the simple act of breathing. I also invite you to open your hands. It's a simple sign of openness to what God is doing in us and through us and all around us. And let's go out with what's called the Serenity Prayer. If you don't know it, it's on your screen. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, this week, may you experience all kinds of grace and peace, and may you put some of those assumptions to rest so that you don't undermine God's work in the world and so that you don't miss miracles happening along the way. Love y'all. Grace and peace. We'll see you next week.